So moving into section 7.2, solving linear equations. This is going to be question 9 in your homework. So we want to solve the following equation, and they want us to use the addition axiom. So with one-step equations, inverse thinking can be a strategy, or what we call the property of equality can be applied. So if I look at this equation, x plus 10 equals negative 20. Now remember, an equation means that the left side of the equation must represent the same amount that's on the right side of the equation. Since the right side is clearly negative 20, what we're asked to find is the actual value of x that you can add 10 to and get negative 20. So if you can just look at that equation and answer that question, you can just write your answer and you're done. If you need a strategy, there's a couple ways of doing this. One way is, instead of thinking this as some number plus 10 is equal to negative 20, you can use inverse thinking and go this direction. If you go in this direction, you have to think opposite. So if we start with negative 20, when we get to this spot, notice how if we went from left to right, these two are related by addition. If you go this way, they're related by subtraction. So negative 20 take away a 10 has to get me back to what x is. So if I use inverse thinking, I can write this statement. So if I can figure out what this is, that'll give me the value of x. So remember, this is the same thing as, again, since we're working with positive numbers, I use the circle method. So there's a negative 20 and there's a negative 10. So what this really means to me is, and a lot of times I'll write this, I'll just do it mentally. What this means is negative 20 plus a negative 10 equals x. So that's another way of looking at it. So notice how we have a $20 loss and we're combining it with a $10 loss. That means our total loss is going to be a negative 30. So x would have to be a negative 30. So if we look at this problem, would a negative 30 plus a 10 give me a negative 20? And it would. So that would be one way of solving it. What we call inverse thinking, or thinking backwards. Now, the property of equality basis says what you do to one side, you can do the other. So if I have x plus 10 equals negative 20, what I can do, as you recall, is there's what's called get x by itself. To get x by itself means this plus 10 has to go away. So how do we lose 10? I like to use what's called a zero pair. To get a zero pair, I use the opposite of what's here. Since I see a positive 10, what that tells me to do is add a negative 10 to each side. So let me do that in a little bit different color. So I can add a negative 10 here. But to keep the equation balanced, the property of equality, you would have to add a negative 10 to this side as well. So if I draw this line here, this now says combine these two together. So notice how this 10 and this negative 10 are going to actually zero out. So x plus 0 really is just x. So this gets my x by itself. So all I really got to do is simplify this left-hand side. So a negative 20 and a negative 10 would give me a negative 30. And that would be using what's called the property of equality, is I can just get x by itself by making the positive 10 disappear. And to make a positive 10 disappear, I need its opposite, which means I need a loss of 10. So I lose 10 on both sides, and that will zero out the 10s and get my x by itself, and that will give me the solution. So sometimes you may be asked to write this as a solution set. So if I'm using these braces, what you put inside here would be the value that actually makes it true. So the solution set would just be a negative 30. So sometimes you have to write it like that. That would be our solution if we're using what's called a set notation.